Welcome to Table for One. I'm the narrator, and today I'm going to be playing Voidfall. In this video, I'm going to do a solo playthrough of the tutorial using House Dunlork. Let's get rolling. Alright, so I'm all set up to play the solo tutorial for Voidfall. So a couple notes on this before I get started. First of all, you might see some components that look a little bit different than yours. I'm not going to spend time talking about it. I'll probably make a whole video dedicated to it when I'm ready to it. But my friends and I have an Etsy store, and one of the things we make is pieces for Voidfall. So there's a link in the description. You can find out more there if anything looks different from you. But in this video, it'll probably be reclaim and bounty tokens, the fleet tokens, the installations, and the guilds. But we've got more stuff than that, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. So other than that, I think it's worth playing the tutorial. This is not a how to play video. It's not a rules video, but just to give people an example. Sometimes you might just want a run through to see to make sure that you're understanding everything. Now the tutorial, even on solo, is played as if it's competitive. There is no crisis board. And thank goodness, because this game is big and I don't know where I'd fit a crisis board. I'll have to figure that out for future videos. So that whole mechanic is missing. If you really feel like you want to jump in and you haven't played before, and you want to use all of the solo mechanics, including the crisis board and everything that comes with it, don't play the tutorial. Then go to a low complexity scenario like the very first one. I think it's called First Stand, and just play that then. Because the tutorial is really great for learning. Every time I've taught this game, I use the tutorial. I don't mind playing it myself. It's fine. But it limits the decision space, so it's not so overwhelming. So in this particular video, I am playing as House Dunlork, which I picked randomly from the 4 starting civilizations. And you always use in the tutorial the A starting tech. So that would be orbital docks in this case. So when I deploy fleet power, each sector with at least 1 shipyard is considered to have 1 additional shipyard. I've already done the setup. So on the origin card here, I've got my resource levels and resource stockpile. I start with 4 active fleet power, and I've got on my home sector 1 fleet power and a Farmers Guild, and then on my outpost sector here, I've got 2 fleet power, always corvettes, at least for these 4 basic civilizations, and I've got an engineer guild and a miners guild, and should be another shipyard. So let me grab that. So glad I checked. And then you take that origin card, you flip it over, and you tuck it right here. This is your starting agenda. It can never be corrupted or removed. And so I believe it's the same for the A side of all 4 starting basic civilizations. Your scoring criteria are 3 influence for each peer sector, 1 influence for each peer sector with at least 1 sector defense, and 2 influence for each peer sector with at least 1 shipyard. So I think that's it. I randomized the techs in terms of, well, let me rephrase that. They tell you which text to start with, and it's houses, Astorin, Shiveus, Marquelos, and Thegwin you start with their text, and then I randomized for a solo game. You remove the +4 influence version of 3 of them, so it ended up being Sentries, Terraforming, and Neural Matrix. And then I also randomized the improved versions, so which ones we'll see on the top of the Galactic board up there in Cycle 2, and then the Cycle 3 ones are here. The trade tokens, you start with 5 in the solo mode, And then, of course, all the agendas here are randomized as well. One other thing to note, these reclaim and bounty tokens that I'm using that we're selling on Etsy, they're all blank on the back, and I'm using a draw bag system over here to draw the actual tokens when the time comes. So let's take a look at this first Galactic event, which I've already flipped over. So you should, read the rules before you play. That's the first thing this says. We're going to have 3 turns in this round. It says to discard a bunch of your focus cards, which I've already done, and it leaves you with only these 3, production, reinforcement, and development. So as I said, we're going to play 3 turns this round, and we have 3 cards. So we're going to use them all. It's just a matter of which order do we want to use them in. So that's an example of how the tutorial limits your decision space in a I think, useful way for learning the game. And then this other piece says for all players to move the corruption from your player mat onto your outpost sector. So let's do that as well. Normally you have a corruption that starts right here, but in the tutorial you take it off of there and you put it in your outpost. Okay. And then scoring criteria, I should look at that too. At the end of this Galactic cycle, if we have 5 or more fleet power, on the map, which we have 3 right now. If we have 5 or more, you can increase 1 pure population and gain a credit and a science. Or if you have 5 or more pure guilds, then you can deploy fleet power and gain 2 food. So those are some things to work for in this cycle, in addition to your agenda items here. So I am going to start by playing this reinforcement focus. I'll put it here, and I'm going to take this top action first, which is accelerate, and the cost is to deactivate a fleet power, and then I can advance any one of these civilization tracks, and I'm going to choose the middle one, which is statecraft, and the bonus is I get to activate a fleet power, so I get that back. And then on top of that, I get to add a sector defense, so we'll go ahead and put that here. The other action I'm going to take is muster. So that's going to cost 2 materials. And I'll just go ahead and pay the materials for that. So 1, 0. And now I can deploy 1 fleet power to each shipyard. And because I have orbital docks, each of these shipyards, sectors with a shipyard, counts as having an additional 1. So I can deploy 2 here and 2 here. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to add 2 fleet power here. And I'm going to need another fleet token. Here we go. And these are pretty neat. They're double-sided, so Voidborn on this side and player on this side. So 2 to this sector. 1, 2. And that was my 2 actions. So at this point in the turn, I double-check, make sure that I don't have any sectors with more than 2 fleet tokens, and I don't. Make sure that I don't have more than 4 glory tokens, and I don't. If I had any trade tokens, I'd have to put them away at this point. And if I had played any agendas, I would have to either slot them at this point or put them back in the agenda offer. And then if this was a multiplayer game, it would go to the next person. But obviously it's solo. So that is the first turn. Let's take another one. And I'm going to play this development focus card. So I'm going to do this first action, which is grow. It costs 1 material. I'm out of materials, but I do have 3 credits. So I'm going to spend a credit. So that goes down to 2. And I can either place a guild or place an installation. And I would like to place a guild. And so I'm going to place a Banker's Guild right there. And so now my credit, there's 2 population. It doesn't matter that they're corrupted. 2 population there. And I've got a Banker's Guild. So my credit level on this very leftmost side goes from 0 to 2. 1, 2. Which then makes my yield 1 credit if I produce credits. And for my second action, I'm going to spend 1 science to do harmonize. So spend 1 science, I have 2, so that goes down to 1 now. And I can either raise 1 pure population or remove 1 corruption from anywhere. So that means any of my sectors or my civilization tracks or my agenda slots. I'm going to choose to do the latter. I'm going to remove a corruption. I'm going to remove it from this pure sector. If you recall, the starting agenda and most other agendas out there don't score on corrupted sectors. So if I want to get any points for that sector, I need it to be pure. So that's why I did that. And then again, we get 3 turns this cycle. And if you ever forget how many turns you've played, just count the number of cards you've got in your discard pile right here. That's what this space is for. So we'll take the 3rd turn. I've only got 1 card left, so it's going to be production. And I'm going to take the top 2 actions. So first is Thrive and then Supply. So on the Thrive action, the cost is free, and I can raise my society track by 1. So I do that, and I gain 1 credit and 1 science. So I now go from 2 to 3 credits and from 1 to 2 science. And for the second one, I'm going to produce food, energy, and materials. So my food yield is 1, so I go from 4 to 5. My energy yield is 1, so I go from 2 to 3. My materials yield is 2, so I go from 0 to 2. Additionally, it also says gain 1 influence for every pure Farmers Guild, Engineers Guild, or Miners Guild. So I have 1, 2, 3. These are pure now. So I gain 3 influence. Of course, you start with 10. So I'm going to move this up to 13. All right, great. So I'm out of cards. That's been 3 turns, so it's the end of the cycle. So the next thing that happens, if we look at the Galactic board right up there, is we skirmish. So the Voidborn are going to attack me in a sector that is adjacent to a Voidborn sector that can also be invaded. So the home sector can never be invaded. If you've got questions about how to skirmish, I've got a whole video on it, so you can check that out as well. But anyway, you calculate the strength of the Voidborn fleet by the number of corruption on your house mat in cycle 1. And I have 0 corruption there, so there is no skirmish. Or technically there is a skirmish, but I automatically win. So that is that step. The next step is I need to pay my upkeep. So I've got 1, 2 for this agenda here. And then also I filled up all these guild slots. I've got a 3rd upkeep there. So I've got to pay 3 upkeep. I'm going to pay with food. I have 5 food, so I'm going to reduce that to 2. And because I was able to pay the whole thing, there's no penalty. Now we look at the bonuses for the Galactic cycle. So the second bonus was if you had 5 or more pure guilds, and I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 pure guilds. So not enough for that second bonus. But the first bonus occurs if you have 5 or more fleet power, and I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fleet power out on the map. So I can increase a pure population by 1 and gain a credit and a science. So let's start with that second part. I go from 3 to 4 credits, from 2 to 3 science, and I can increase a pure population. I'm going to do this one here. I've got more guilds here, so I'm going to go from 2 to 3. If I can find the 3, there it is. Now because this went up by 1, each of these guilds goes up 1 level. So energy goes from level 2 to level 3, which makes the yield go from 1 to 2. Materials goes from level 3 to level 4, which makes the yield go from 2 to 3. And credits goes from level 2 to level 3, but the yield goes from 1 to 1 in that case. And then lastly, I am going to do step 4 here, which is score influence based off all your agendas. And I only have the starting agenda right now. So the first piece is 3 influence for every pure sector. And I have 2 of those. So that's going to be 6 influence. So I'm up to 19. Now it's 1 influence for every sector with at least 1 pure sector defense. So that's just going to be this sector here. So that's 1 more. So that gets me up to 20. And now 2 influence for every sector with at least 1 pure shipyard. So I've got 2 of those sectors. 2 times 2 is 4, if my math is right there. So that gets me up to 24 influence. And that's the end of this cycle. So now we'll prepare for the next cycle. So the first thing we're going to do is remove a trade token. That's out of the game. Then we're going to unblock the improved technologies. So those are now available to pick up. And we're not going to need to worry about changing player order because this is a solo game. So I'm going first. And then we'll pick a new Galactic event. And we're using the tutorial events. So for cycle 2, the first thing I see is we're going to have 4 turns this round. Again, it encourages you to make sure you've read the rule book and the compendium. Again, it gives you a list of cards to discard, which includes production and reinforcement that we used this time. So we're going to be left with 5 cards to choose from. And I unsurprisingly don't have room for all 9 cards if I don't have room for 5. Here we go. So we're left with development, conquest, prosperity, politics, and innovation. We've discarded production, progress, reinforcement, and temptation. So again, we have 4 turns this cycle. We have 5 cards. So now in our decision space, we know one of these cards won't get played. Now, each player may also activate 1 fleet power and gain 1 basic technology. So let's put that down for a moment and pick our technology. And I'm going to take deep space missiles. The reason being, my technology orbital docks encourages me to have shipyards, and deep space missiles also uses shipyards, so they go together pretty well. So this says, during combat, when you're the invader, if you have 1 or more adjacent shipyards or star bases, you may spend 1 energy to deal 1 approach damage. And on prosperity focus, you may spend 1 material to build a shipyard. So immediately on getting this card, or this technology, you get 4 influence, which brings me up to 28. You get 2 energy, which brings me from 3 to 5. And you may build 1 shipyard. So let's do that. Now, I don't necessarily have to build it. I'm going to, just for fun. This is the only place I can put it. So that is going to cost me another upkeep at the end of each cycle, but I'm doing it anyway. So we're going to tuck this right in here. And now the scoring criteria at the end of this cycle, so what we want to aim for, we'll get a bonus if we have 9 or more pure population, and we're at 5 right now, or we'll gain a bonus if we have 3 or more technologies, and we're up to 2. So I'm going to start off by playing the politics focus, I think. I'm going to start by spending 1 science to do this first action. So I go from 3 to 2 science. This is called Inspire, and advance the statecraft track by 1. And that allows me to take a new technology. Now, I have not unlocked any of my thresholds for improved technologies yet, so it still has to be a basic technology. And I think I'm going to take terraforming, even though it doesn't have the +4 influence. So the immediate benefit is I can either raise a pure population or gain 2 materials. I think I'm going to raise a pure population, and it's going to be this one from 3 to 4, which means my energy, material, and credit production levels each go up by 1. So energy goes from 3 to 4, material goes from 4 to 5, and credits go from 3 to 4. And this allows me to, when I play a development or a prosperity focus, I can spend 1 material to increase a pure population. So I'm going to be trying to increase my population, and that pairs well with the deep space missiles, which also give you a bonus on prosperity focus. So they both do something on prosperity focus. I really want to play that focus card. So that was the first action. The second action here is Prevail. So I'm going to take this action here, and then it costs 2 energy and 1 credit, and that's the way that I'll spend it. So 1, 2 energy, and 1 credit. And now I can increase 1 glory token by a value of 1. Now I only have this 1 glory token, so I'm going to get rid of the 2 and replace it with a 3. And I've got this nice little tray here to hold all the glory tokens. And the second part of the action is to invade, so I can invade 1 sector. And I'm going to invade this sector up here, actually. And I'm going to use deep space missiles. I have a shipyard adjacent to the sector that's being attacked. So I'm going to spend 1 energy to do 1 approach damage. So I can damage this ship, and it's defeated. Now Now, it's not an abandoned sector because this is like on approach. So simultaneously, there's a sector defense here, and I'm going to take a hit. And now the first salvo begins. We go to calculate the initiative. I have 2 and the opponent has 0. So the battle is at this point 1. So the first thing you need to do is remove all the sector installations. So that could be sector defenses, shipyards, or star bases if there's any in your game. Then I'm going to take this glory token, add it to my other glory tokens, and score my total glory. So that's 6. So I go from 28 to 34. And there's a reclaim token here, so I gain that. And I have a draw bag here with all the cardboard pieces in it. So let's take a reclaim token out. And on the back it says, I can either gain 1 of any resource, or I can add a Engineers Guild to the sector that I just won the combat in. So I'm going to do that. So I add an Engineers Guild here, and there's 4 population in that sector. So this goes up, my level goes up from 4 to 8. And so my yield goes from 3 to 5, which is nice. And that's it. I've taken 2 actions now on this card. Again, I do all the normal checks at the end of my turn. I don't have any sectors with more than 2 fleet tokens. I don't have more than 4 glory tokens. And I don't have any trade tokens to put away or agendas to slot. So I think the next thing I'm going to do is play my Prosperity Focus card. And I'll start with the action at the top, which is called Flourish. I'm going to spend 1 material, so I go from 2 to 1, to advance on the economic civilization track. So when I do, this is uncorrupted, so I gain the bonus beneath it, which is Advance Again. And now I gain that bonus, which is gain a trade token. So I'm going to take the first available trade token. And that goes right here for now. And I gain either the bonus next to it, which is any combination of 2 resources between food, material, and energy, or any of the bonuses below it. So I could take a bounty token or a science. And I think I will take the 2. I'm going to take 2 materials. So I'm going to go from 1 to 3 materials. And now, because it's Prosperity Focus, I can, using Deep Space Missiles, spend 1 material to build a shipyard. And I'm going to go ahead and build it here. And also, because it's Prosperity Focus, I can spend 1 material. So from 2 back down to 1 to increase a pure population. So I'm going to have this one go from 4 to 5. So again, that'll increase the level of those guilds. So energy goes from 8 to 9. Materials goes from 5 to 6. And credits goes from 4 to 5. Level, not yield. So those were a couple of technology extra actions that I had. I've done this first prosperity action, so I still have 1 more left. And I'll take this middle action, which is free, called Store. I get to produce any 1 type of resource and gain 2 resources of any type, which can be mixed. So I think I'm going to produce... I'm going to produce credits, which gets me from 3 to 5 because my yield is 2. And I'm going to take 1. I take that back. Let's go back to 3 credits. I'm going to produce materials. So I have 1, my yield is 4. So I'm going to go up to 5 materials. And then my 2 resources that I'll take, I think 1 credit. So I go up to 4 and 1 food. So I go up to 3. All right, that was 2 actions. So this card goes in the discard pile. And now I need to find a home for this trade token, and luckily I've got a home right there on that agenda slot. So that was my second turn of 4. For my third turn, I'm going to play the Innovation Focus card, which again is never available in Cycle 1, but we're in Cycle 2. And I'm going to spend this trade token to take all 3 actions. So I flip it over, I put it on the card there. The first action I'm going to take is this middle one, which is Invest. It costs 2 science. So I spend my science to 1, 0. Okay. And I get to take a technology. And I can't take an advanced one yet. So I'm going to take Trade Nexus here. So immediately on the bottom, I gain 4 influence. So I go from 34 to 38. And then I gain 2 food. So this goes from 3 to 5. And I gain 1 trade token. And again, I take any bonus that is uncovered at this point. And I think I'm going to take 2 science. So that goes from 0 to 2. And the effect is when you return a trade token to the Galactic board, you may gain the trade bonus. That is super cool. All right, so that was my first action. My second action is going to be this top one, which is called Research. And that allows me to pay 2 food, but I'm going to substitute credits in this case. So I go from 4 down to 2. You know what? I'll actually split it. I'll spend 1 credit and 1 food. So I've got 3 credits left, and my food goes from 5 down to 4. And that tells me to produce science and credits. I have no science production, so I get nothing. For credits, I'm going to gain 2, so I go from 3 back up to 5. And then gain 1 influence for each pure Science Guild and Bankers Guild, which is just going to be this 1. So I get 1 influence. And now my third action is this bottom one, spend 1 material, 1 energy, and 1 food. I'm going to spend 1 material and 1 energy, but instead of food, I'm going to spend a credit. And I can gain an agenda. Now, I really want this agenda type, but I don't particularly like the card that's on top. So I'm going to take the next 2 cards and take a quick look at them. And this one, Technological Singularity, is going to be better for me. So I take the other one, and that just goes back to the bottom of the deck. And this is in my hand now. Hasn't done anything yet. So that was all 3 of these actions. So it's the end of my turn. So this trade token that I gain needs a home. And it can go right there. This trade token needs to be returned, but because I have Trade Nexus, I also get a trade bonus when I return it. And so I'm going to take 2 credits as my bonus. So I go from 4 to 6. Okay, now this is discarded. And so I've taken, if we double check, 1, 2, 3 turns in this second cycle. So I've only got 1 turn left, and I'm going to play Development. And sorry, I've got Orbital Docks here to the side. That's the improved version of my starting tech. I'm going to play Development, and that matches this agenda that I just got. So I'm going to play the agenda with it. And the question is, will I play the trade token as well? And I think I will. I'm going to flip that over. Great. So I can take all 3 of these actions plus this action, and I can choose the order. And it's Development Focus, which again goes with terraforming. So at some point, I'll probably make use of that. And let's start with this bottom action, Harmonize. I'm going to spend 1 science, so that goes from 2 to 1, to either raise a pure population or remove a corruption. And I'm going to remove this corruption. All right. And then I'm going to do this top action, Grow. I'm going to spend 1 material, so from 4 down to 3, to either add a guild or add an installation. And I'm going to add a guild. And it's going to be a farmer's guild, and it's going to go right here. So there's a population of 4 in that sector, so my level on food production goes from 2 to 6. That should really help production. And then this middle action is settle, so I'm going to deactivate, or recall, I'm sorry, a fleet power from here in order to build a guild and an installation in that sector. Now for the installation, I'm going to build a sector defense for 2 reasons. One, now that it's a pure sector, I want to try and get shipyards and sector defense so that I can score more points for it. And also, since we're down to 1 fleet power in that sector, I don't want it to get damaged, or I don't want to lose the sector in a skirmish, so the sector defense will help defend it. And I also get to build a guild there, and I'm going to put down a science guild this time. So science goes from level 0 to level 4. Which is a yield of 3, so I can actually produce science now. And lastly, I'm going to take this action from the agenda, which lets me place another guild, and when I place it, I also produce the resource type for that guild placed. And I'm going to pause on that for a second. I'm going to build a farmer's guild, but while I'm thinking about it, since it's development focus on this terraforming card, I'm going to spend 1 material now, so from 3 to 2, to raise a pure population, and I'm going to raise this one from 4 to 5. So each of these guild types, the level goes up. So energy goes from level 9 to level 10, food goes from level 6 to level 7, and science goes from level 4 to level 5. Now I will take the agenda action and place this farmer's guild here. So that level is going to go up by 2 more. So from 7 to 9, and now I produce that type. So my yield is 6, so I go from having 4 in my stockpile to 10. I've got a lot of food now. That should help me get through the upkeep at the end of the cycle. So I've taken all the actions I can this turn. So the agenda card I can tuck in here. The trade token I return, but again with Trade Nexus I still get a trade bonus. And I think I'm going to take 2 material because I seem to be using a lot of material. So it goes from 2 to 4. And I can put this card here. And I've taken 4 turns now. It's 4 turns in the cycle, so I don't get to play Conquest this time. But we go to the end of cycle phase, phase C, evaluation phase. So first there's a skirmish. And again, it starts off based off the number of corruption on my player mat here, which is still 0. But in cycles 2 and 3, you add 1 to that number. So we're actually going to skirmish at a fleet power of 1. And so let's check all of my potential sectors. The home sector cannot be invaded, so that's not an option. If I go into this sector, there's a sector defense, so that takes out this 1 fleet power on approach. And same thing here, if I go into this sector, there's a sector defense, which takes out this fleet power on approach. Now, if I had not built that sector defense, this 1 fleet power would have come in, and it would have been tied 1 to 1. These 2 fleets would have obliterated each other. Then I would have lost the sector, and the Voidborn would have come in after it was abandoned. So it's a good thing that I put that there. But in any case, I win the skirmish. The next step is upkeep. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 upkeep I need to pay, and I have 10 food. So I'm going to pay it all in food. That's the most efficient way to do it. That gets me down to 2. Then we go to the Galactic event, or the bonuses on the Galactic event. So you get a bonus if you have 9 or more pure population, and I've got 12. Or you get a bonus if you have 3 or more technologies, and I have 4. So I can gain either bonus. The 2 options for the bonuses, in either case, you activate 1 fleet power, and then you can either raise a pure population or gain a tech. And I'm going to take a tech, and I'm going to take dreadnoughts just for fun. So I gain 4 influence. So I go from 39 to 43. And I can deploy 1 dreadnought fleet to my home sector. This reads, you may deploy into dreadnought fleets, that's what the tech gives you, for a cost of 1 material per fleet power. So I do need to pay that even in this case. So I'm going to pay with a credit, though, from 6 down to 5. And your Dreadnought fleets are limited to a maximum of power of 1. So on these tokens that I'm using here, this is the basic side. It can only hold 1 fleet power. That's the only place for a cube. The improved version, which I'm not going to get this game because it's about to go away, allows you to put 3 fleet power on a token. And so if you flip it over, there's spots for 3 cubes, which I think is kind of neat. And it's white on top to match the white improved tech color. Anyway, so I'm going to put that in my home sector. Now I've got a Dreadnought fleet there. And that's all the basic techs I can have. I can't get any more of these techs up here because I don't have any more slots. In different maps, there are Fallen House sectors that you can, I suppose, liberate. And if you liberate the Fallen House sector, the first time you do that, it allows you to have a 6th tech slot. But there's not one of those in this game, so that's not going to happen. So I've taken my bonus from the Galactic event, and I'm pretty sure I activated a fleet power. I don't remember, but I'm just going to leave it how it is. I think it's probably okay. And so the last part is we're going to score our agendas, or our pure ones, and they're all pure right now. So we'll start with the basic one again. 3 influence for every pure sector, and I have 3 of those, so that's 9 influence. So I go from 43 to 52. 1 influence for each sector with at least 1 pure sector defense, so 2 of those sectors, so I go from 52 to 54, and then 2 influence for each pure sector with at least 1 shipyard, and I've got 3 of those, so that's going to be 6 more influence, which gets me from 54 to 60. And now on this agenda card, if I have at least 4 technologies, which I do, gain 4 influence, 1, 2, 3, 4, and gain 5 influence for every pair of pure sectors. So I've got 3 pure sectors. That's only 1 pair. So that gets me 5 influence. Okay. So now we go into cycle 3. So again, we need to start by removing a trade token. So that's out of the game. We refresh the improved technologies. So these are no longer available, but the other 4 become available. So we have sentries, terraforming, deep space missiles, and decontamination chambers. And the turn order will remain the same, and we need a new galactic event. So the tutorial 3rd cycle event is Redemption Awaits. Again, read the tutorial, then discard the Temptation focus, but you have all other focus cards. So this is the first time you get the Progress focus, I believe. So we have 8 focus cards to choose from now. Production, Reinforcement, Progress, Development, Innovation, Prosperity, Politics, and Conquest. It's only Temptation that is not used. And that's not used at all in the tutorial because really the most complex, because 2 of the costs involve you taking Corruption. It also has you using a preferred focus, which is a little more to think about. And it has this action here that lets you choose the next Galactic cycle event, but the events are predetermined in the tutorial, so that would be useless. Anyway, now each player may either gain an agenda card or advance 1 civilization track. Now I'm going to take an agenda card, and I'm going to take this dominance type, and again, I'm going to draw the top 2 from the stack and pick one of those. I think this one, Sustainable Luxury, I can make that work. And I'm just thinking ahead. The extra action here, when paired with the Innovation focus, allows you to invade, and I would like to probably clear out all these Voidborn sectors this round. So we've got 5 turns to do that. The bonuses at the end of the cycle are 15 influence is what you get. In either case, if you have either 8 pure guilds, which I already do, or if you have 8 or more, or if you have a pure civilization track that's at least at level 2, which is here, and I'm kind of far away from those, but I'm feeling good about the guilds. So let's get started. And I'm going to start with the politics card, I think. And I'm going to first take the action on the top. I'm going to spend 1 science, so that goes from 1 to 0, to advance my statecraft track. So that goes up to here, and I can gain another agenda. And I'll go ahead and take the top one this time, which is Agricultural Union. So I'm looking pretty good in that respect. There we go. I knew I had another one somewhere. So I've got some unplayed agendas here and a number of cards. So that's the first action. The second action is going to be Prevail, which is going to cost 2 energy and 1 credit. I've only got 1 energy, so I'll pay 1 energy and 2 credits. And that allows me to exchange a glory token for 1 of higher value. So I'm going to swap out this 3 with a 4. And then perform an invade action. And I'm going to invade this sector. And I'm going to do that with these 3 corvettes. So I'm going to bring them in. And now there is no approach. I guess there can be. I can spend 1 energy to do 1 approach damage, but I'm not going to in this case. I am just going to go straight into the salvo, and I've got more initiative, so I'll take out the ship in the first salvo before I can fire back. So there's really no need to spend the resource on the approach damage. Save myself the energy. There are no installations to remove, no bounty or reclaim tokens. So I'm just going to take this 1 glory token, and now I've got 8 glory here. So let's gain 8 glory. So that gets me to 77. And that was 2 actions off this card, so it's now discarded, and it's time to play another one. And let's look at my options here and my money situation. Okay, so I think I have a plan here. I'm going to start by playing the innovation focus with this matching agenda. And I'm going to start with the agenda that allows me to do an invade action. And I'm going to invade this sector here. I'm going to move my dreadnought in from the home sector, which can never be abandoned. And I'm going to take 2 fleet power from this corvette fleet and move it into this sector as well. So we'll just split it like so. And on approach, I'm going to pay 1 energy using credits, so from 3 to 2, to do an approach damage. So they lose 1. And now we go into the salvos. I've got the initiative. We fire again, and that takes out the Voidborn without me losing any fleet power. So I win the sector. Let's gain this bounty token. We'll draw it out of the red bag here. And I get either 1 influence or 1 food and 1 energy. And I'll take the food and energy, please. So I can use some resources right now. So I've got 3 food, 1 energy at this point. And then I grab this number 2 glory token and score my total glory. So 4, 6, 9, and 10. So I go from 77 to 87. And I now have this sector. I would really like to build up this sector, but kind of just looking at the options I have left and looking at what I have the ability to purify, I think I'm going to build up this sector, even though the population's a little less. So the next action I'm going to take is this top one here, research, and I'm going to spend, it costs 2 food. I'm going to spend 2 food. I won't use credits, I'll use food. And that allows me to produce credits. So I go from 2 to 4 and produce science. So I go from 0 to 3. And then I gain 1 influence for each pure bankers or scientist guild that I have. So 1, 2. So 87 up to 89. And then I'll take this action here for 2 science. So I go from 3 back down to 1. And I can gain a technology. And I have crossed this threshold where I can have an advanced technology. So I'm going to take an improved, that's the word, an improved technology, and I'm going to take terraforming. So immediately I gain 6 influence. So I go up to 95. And I can advance the economic civilization track. So I do that. That now allows me to have another advanced tech, and I can place a guild. So I'm going to place a scientist guild in this sector here, because I intend to purify it and then score points off of this agenda here with it. So I've done this, and now the effect is development, prosperity, or innovation focus. I may increase a pure population, and I no longer have to pay for it. So I'm just going to cover up the old terraforming card there. And I happen to be playing an innovation focus right now, and I can use that. So I'm going to raise this population from 2 to 3 in my home sector. And I have 2 farmers guilds there. So my this farmer one goes up from level 9 to level 11. So I'd be producing a yield of 10 food when I produce. So that was 2 card actions plus the agenda action. So I discard this card and I slot this agenda right here. And everything else cleanup wise looks good. So I'm ready to take the next turn. And that's going to be the prosperity focus. So I'll start with the action at the top, which is flourish, pay 1 material. So I go from 4 to 3 to raise the economic track, which is this one. And that allows me to gain a trade token, which I will take. And I will take the 2 credits as my bonus. So I go from 4 to 6. And the second action that I'm going to take is this middle one, which is store. So I can produce 1 type of resource and then gain 2 resources. So I'm going to produce energy. So my yield is 8. I go from 1 to 9. And then gain 2 resources. I'm going to gain 2 food, it looks like. So I go from 1 to 3. Also, because it's prosperity focus, my improved terraforming allows me to raise 1 pure population. And I'll go ahead and do this one, go from 5 to 6. I should have done this first, but I didn't, so too bad for me, because now my energy yield goes up again. So does my materials and credits. So when I produced energy earlier, I should have done this first, but I did not. Also, though, because it's prosperity focus and I have deep space missiles, I can spend 1 material, so from 3 to 2, to build a shipyard. So I'm going to put that right there. So that was 2 actions off of this card. Put it away. Nothing to clean up. So I've played 3 out of 5. So next I'm going to do Conquest, and I'm going to play this agenda with it. And I'm going to start with this top action, which is engage. So for 2 energy, I can invade a sector. So I'm going to invade this last one. And I'm going to invade with this dreadnought, as well as 1 corvette fleet power. So I'll just split this off. And adjacent to the combat sector, I do have a shipyard. So I'm going to use deep space missiles, pay 1 energy to do 1 approach damage. Now, also in the approach step, they've got a sector defense that fires back, but my dreadnought absorbs it. So now we go to salvo. I've got 3 initiative and they've got 1, because the dreadnought counts for an extra. So we fire first, the Voidborn are destroyed, and we don't get fired upon. We win the combat. Now we remove the existing installations. We gain this glory token and score our total glory. So what was it? 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14. So we go from 95 to 109. And there are 2 reclaim tokens here. So let's draw a couple of those. 1, 2. So the first one says I can build an engineers guild in that sector. And the second says I can build a bankers guild in that sector. So I will do both. Alternatively, I could have taken 2 resources of any type, but that's not what I want to do. So an engineers guild and a bankers guild. So that population is 4, so each of these go up by 4. So 11, 12, 13, 13 is the max. So I'm maxed out on energy, and 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I'm at 10 on credits, which is a yield of 4. All right, so that was the first action. And now I'm going to take this agenda action to activate 1 fleet power and build an installation. And the installation doesn't really matter. I'm going to put a shipyard here because I want to fill these up because I'll score more for it on this agenda. And now I can still take another action. And I'm going to take this middle one, which is strategize for 1 energy and 1 credit. And it allows me to move 1 corruption. I'll move a corruption off of this sector to here. I don't really care about that right now. And also gain an agenda. And I don't really care about the agenda, I don't think. I'm really doing it for the action, but I want this type. So let's take the top 2 just to see if I can get one that'll score better than this, but I don't think so. Well, maybe. Definitely not this one. Self-sustaining campaign might. This one is likely to get me 5, 10, 15. It would be hard for this to get me 4, 8, 12, 16. Yeah, it's not going to happen. So it doesn't matter. I'll take that one, put the other on the bottom. I'm just doing this for the agenda action. You'll see in a minute. So I've taken this agenda action, both of these card actions. So I'm out of actions. I'm going to tuck this agenda in here. Again, it is different. It's a different agenda type than the other ones that I have. You can only have one of each type. So this Conquest goes away. I've taken 1, 2, 3, 4 turns. There are 5 in this cycle. So I get 1 more card, and it is going to be development. And so before I forget, I'm going to spend this trade token to take all 3 actions. And I'm going to play this agenda with it. I'm going to start with this bottom action. I'm going to spend 1 science, so I'm down to no more science, to remove this corruption. Now I'm going to take this action here. I have to recall 1 fleet power. Let's do this one. And that allows me to place a guild and an installation in that sector. So the guild is going to be a science guild, and the installation is going to be a shipyard. Those are both for scoring purposes. And so my science production goes up by 4 levels from 5 to 9. So if I were to produce science, I would get 6. And I didn't really need to take this third action, but I've already spent the trade token, so let's do it. I'm going to spend 1 material, and I'm going to place a sector defense right here, again, just to get a point. And lastly, I'm going to take this action from the agenda card to place a guild. And I'm going to place a farmer's guild right here. So my yield goes up by 3, or my level goes up by 3. It's maxed out at 13 now. And then I produce that type. So I'm going to produce 15 food. I've already got 3, and 15 is the max. So I've overproduced, so now I gain 3 influence for that. 10, 11, 12, 112. Looking good. So now it's at the end of the turn. The trade token goes back, and because I have trade nexus, I can gain a bonus. Oops, and before I do that, this is development, so I can use the terraforming to increase 1 population for free. And I don't think it really matters, but let's do this one. so that this one's already maxed, but this goes up, this goes up. Okay, sure. This gets discarded. I have too many glory tokens, so I'm going to discard this one. And I have no open slots, so I can either trade this wealth agenda for the existing one, and I don't want to. So my other option is I can just put it on the bottom of the stack, and that's what I'll do. So we've now played 5 turns, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in cycle 3, and that is the max for this cycle. So we go to the evaluation step. Step C is skirmish, and I have 1 corruption here on my house mat, plus it's the 3rd cycle, so I gain a second, or the Voidborn would gain a second fleet power in their skirmish, but I have no sectors adjacent to any Voidborn sectors, so there are no legal skirmish targets, so I don't have to worry about it. The next step is upkeep. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. But I have 15 food. So I just pay it off in food. I'm down to 1 food, but everything was paid for. Now, if we look at the Galactic bonuses at the end of the cycle here, I do have at least 8 pure guilds. I had 8 to begin with. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 now. The other option is to be at level 2 on any track, and I have not achieved that. But I achieved the first one, and the bonus for that is 15 influence. So I go from 112 to 127, which is good. And now we score the agendas. So I guess I need that back. Starting with the first one, 3 influence for every pure guild, every pure sector. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sectors times 3 is 15. 7, 8, 9, 0, 1, 2. So I'm at 132. 1 influence for every pure sector with sector defense. 1, 2, 3. 2 influence for every pure sector with a shipyard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's 10. On technological singularity, 4 influence if you have at least 4 technologies. And 5 influence for every pair of pure sectors. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pure sectors. That's 2 pairs. So that's 10 influence. On sustainable luxury, if your society track is at least at level 2 and pure, it is neither of which, you get 5 influence. So I knew I wasn't going to get that. But the second piece is 5 influence for every pure sector that costs you 2 upkeep. So 1, 2. I was hoping to get a third. It didn't quite work out. But those 2 sectors get me 10 influence. And on this last one, agricultural union, if you have at least 3 pure science guilds, or farmers guilds, 1, 2, 3, 4, you get 7 influence. And 4 influence for each pure sector with at least 1 science guild. 1, 2, 3. 3 times 4 is 12. And that is it. That's the end of the tutorial. So my final score was 188. That's all right. It's certainly not professional level, but it's not beginner either. They tell you when you play the tutorial, you want to aim for about 120. When you can get 120 in the tutorial, you can probably move on to other levels, adding other mechanics. You've kind of got a grasp on it. So I'm typically, 175 to 210 is my range on the tutorial. I know a lot of people can do a lot better than that though. So that's it. That's Voidfall. That's the tutorial for solo play. I definitely plan on playing a lot more Voidfall on this channel. I definitely play a fair amount, not on this channel, just for fun, but recording it's been a little bit of a challenge. And Lord knows where I'm going to fit the crisis board next time I try and do this. But I'm looking forward to the challenge. If there's any, if you have any questions about how to play the game, I do have some instructional videos. Check them out on my channel. They're called Rules Refreshers. So they go in depth into some of the more complicated aspects of the game. in case you got any rules questions. If you have a question that I haven't covered, let me know in the comments, and I will make a video to cover it to try and help you out, because you're probably not the only one with that question. Also, I just want to plug again, we've got an Etsy store selling Voidfall stuff. Depending on when you watch this, we'll have probably other games too. When we're done making all the pieces we want to make for Voidfall, I'll just do a video showcasing all of it, so you can kind of check it out if that's something you're interested in. Other than that, that's what I've got this week on Table for One. If you're still here at this point, feel free to subscribe and leave a like, and I would appreciate it. Otherwise, leave a comment. Let me know what you think. That's what I've got this time. I hope you had as much fun as I did. I will see you next time. Take it easy.